Hello, everyone. I'm April Page, the Marketing and Communications Manager at Data. And on behalf of everyone here, I'd like to thank you for joining us today. The title for today's webinar is 2024 Email Inbox Mastery and Wellness Plan, Key Findings from 1,000 Key Email Campaign Audits. And we will be hearing from Data's VP, Katie Intrater, and Inverted Digital's Senior Director of Marketing, Bob Sibidlo. So as everybody trickles in, I just wanted to go through a few housekeeping items. The audio and video are automatically disabled for all participants today. You'll be in listen only. The session will be recorded and we will follow up with a replay link via email so you can go back for anything that you might have missed or share with anyone on your team. Please type any questions in the question section on the right. As you think of them, it's first come, first serve. So I will be providing those to Katie and Bob to answer them at the end of the session. If for some reason we don't get to your question, we'll follow up with you directly via email after the session. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Katie.
Hi guys, my name's Katie Intrater. I am VP at Data, previously Tower Data Fresh Address, and I've been at the company now for 10 years, which is crazy. I'm responsible for managing our partnerships like we have with Inverta, as well as bringing in new business. But prior to this role, I actually was also in email marketing, so I understand some of the pain points and things that email marketers deal with. But funny story, so we were at a conference in Vegas last year, because where else are conferences these days? And our booth happened to be across from Inverta's booth, and we ended up becoming friends with everybody in their booth and realized that we really had complementary services. And so that's kind of how the partnership was built out. And I'm very excited to be doing today's webinar with Bob. So Bob, I'll let you jump in.
Thank you. And the feeling is absolutely mutual. My name is Bob Spittle. I'm the Senior Director of Marketing, Technology, and Strategy here at Inverted Digital. For those who don't know, we're a digital consultancy that helps businesses achieve their goals and reach their customers through the use of data, technology, and through digital transformation. How I got into digital transformation generally was through deliverability, as I found that it was an avenue that just touched all subjects when it came to email marketing or any sort of digital marketing. And I've been doing it for about 18 years now, which is absolutely wild. So it's been a pleasure kind of, Katie, getting to know you. And this has been a real interesting piece of work to put together.
Okay, so first we're going to start with a quick agenda. So there are a lot of changes happening in sort of the email marketing world. So Bob's going to walk us through what some of those most recent changes in the landscape are. And then we'll jump into kind of our wellness plan, our healthy diet, understanding the vitals of our email database, how to maintain it, and then some other habits that you can pick up. But first, Bob is going to walk us through some of the current updates.
All right, anyone who has been paying attention out there to the digital ether, there's been a lot of changes coming out at Yahoo and Gmail that I'll briefly touch on. The two most important ones that I'll call out right now is the need for, or the strong recommendation for one-click unsubscribe. This is controlled through the list unsubscribe, which is code you put into your email or with your ESP. I would strongly recommend you talk to your deliverability professional on this, or your ESP, about ensuring that you have this working properly. The purpose of which is to just manage abuse complaints. Encourage your recipients to unsubscribe from your emails using those mechanisms rather than clicking the spam button, because clicking that spam button hurts your sending reputation, whereas the list unsubscribe or the unsubscribe within your email does not, in fact, counts as an open and a click. The other major change is related to the need to have DMARC authentication working within your email program. DMARC helps you sort of control spoofing on your end, and really this comes from the fact that ISPs are strongly encouraging, if you're going to do email marketing, digital marketing, do everything you can on your end to prevent spam, to prevent and reduce fraud and this types of traffic, because as spam and all this has gotten really out of control, and even just broad sending, it sort of undervalues email as a channel. So doing as much as senders can do to keep lists clean and authenticate their traffic properly helps the ISPs, which help emails deliver, which leads to a nice, good ecosystem of engagement and sending. So strongly recommend making sure you read up on these, and this is important, happening right now. If you are in the email marketing world, you should be aware of this and taking action.
So,
you know what?
Source data.
Let me keep. So I'll continue talking on this one. So as mentioned, where this came from is when Katie and I kind of began talking about mutually how our businesses work and where we complement each other. We started talking about the statistics that we have from over 1,000 deliverability audits and reports that we've completed. Now, when we started looking at all this data, the point was to start looking at and try to identify trends within certain industry verticals. And just to preface, these 1,000 deliverability audits and reports were performed across nearly every major industry vertical with both B2C and B2B senders. They fill pretty much every business size and program type, transactional programs, large marketing programs, every type of email program you can imagine is kind of lumped in there. And what we began looking at is trying to find trends that specific industries might be facing. And while there are nuances that industries could face, for example, if you sell computers, people don't buy computers every day. You might buy a new computer every year or every 3 years or more. So there are unique nuances to every type of program that exists. But when we started looking at what were the common deliverability problems that marketers of all shapes and sizes experience, and then what were the issues or the remediation steps required to fix them, that's when we began noticing trends and patterns emerge. And what I can say is, with not a close second, so the number one reason that deliverability issues occur within a program is due to the management of data. So the most common challenge was data and data management, data in, how data is being handled, and how you manage your data caused nearly just most of the deliverability problems for senders. A second place to that was your email content, your sending strategy. Third place to that was your authentication and sending configuration. But again, it's a distant second. So number one, data is the number one cause of deliverability problems in this space. So that we found quite interesting. And when Katie and I began exploring that, we really got a sense of understanding that data is going to be the most important key element to you maintaining and managing a successful program. And that's where we can see that that is the number one thing that should be at your forefront of your mind as an email marketer. Katie.
Okay, so from his findings, we created what we thought was kind of a creative diet as it relates to your email database. And I made a silly analogy on LinkedIn because I'm getting married later this year, and I'm trying as best as I can to get into the healthy diet mode, exercise, all of that. It's not easy, but the most important thing that you can do for your email database is keep it as healthy as possible, right? And so what does that mean? It means if you put garbage in, just like with your body, garbage is going to come out, right? You've got to stay on top of the quality of your data, and it's not easy. Everyone's busy. I used to be an email marketer, like I said, and I remember the deadlines of getting sends out. And a lot of times you're not necessarily strategic with those sends. And I also remember a lot of the goals, lofty goals of adding a certain amount of new, contacts every year or customers. And when you push those limits, and you're not putting good quality data in, it can really create havoc on the database. So the way that I recommend handling it is being as proactive and not reactive as possible. So what does that mean, right? It means making sure that all of the data that's being added into your email database is being validated right at the point that it's collected. So right as somebody is submitting their information on your website, right as they're checking out at point of sale, make sure that you're validating that those email addresses are deliverable so you can get into their inbox. And also at the same time, if you can, add additional insights, demographic data, other types of household data, so that that very first email can A, get into their inbox, but B, also be completely tailored to exactly who that person is behind the email address and exactly what their household looks like.
So now let's talk about the next part of that, which is data decay. So as your email audience ages, as your subscriber lists age, become inactive, stop responding, stop engaging, or start soft bouncing, you start getting these signs of either no signs of life, or these signs that the email account's going bad or is no longer reachable. These, especially soft bounces, is a great example. Mailbox full is an example. This all causes your open rates to decrease, your click rates decrease, but it does start impacting your sending reputation. And just as we noticed with, across the plethora of deliverability audits that we looked at for this information, reducing and removing a lot of these users or even cleansing them with the data hygiene is again, strong recommendation that we consistently make, helps resolve these problems in just nearly immediately. So as your data decays, you really need to be aware of how long is this email address going to be relevant for you until you should cut it off or scrub it and then choose to keep it in. But this is where it becomes important to start looking for those signs of life across other areas of your ecosystem. If you see a customer who's maybe not active in email, but active on your website or shopping or active in another channel, that email address is still good. But for an email that you only engage with email, when you stop seeing that activity, at some point you have to make the right decision to cut it off, because the biggest problem that can come from not being able to reach these from these users remaining in your database is it harms your sending reputation, which then can translate to new users to your file not getting emails to your inbox. And that means you'll swing and miss your chance to develop that initial rapport with them, and they won't get that initial communication to kick off your relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I think good point, Bob. Everything you do as it relates to your email database has a lasting impact, right? So if you're not maintaining the health of your database, it's not going to allow you to be able to get into the inbox of all of your new customers. So you've got to make sure that you are, really staying on top of that. And, the other ways, going back to the concept of being proactive, is having your email database monitored. So we've got a solution, ListGuard. There are other services out there where essentially on a monthly basis, you can get reports of all of those emails that have decayed, which is natural and normal, to become undeliverable or to become spam traps. And that way you can sort of stay on top of all of those emails that have sort of naturally churned over time.
Now, absolutely. That's so proactive, right? That's the whole point here. One important question that keeps coming up, and Katie and I have both have consistently received, is I'm a B2B sender. So, those problems that affect the B2C senders don't apply to me. And then the B2C senders really aren't aware of or believe that they're in a B2B, they have a B2B problems. So from what we have seen, again, looking at the source data, that a lot of B2B and B2C problems are completely interchangeable. Now remember, the two most popular mail servers for companies to host their email servers with are Gmail and Microsoft. So you could be using your company email and you're using Outlook 360, it's managed by Microsoft. You could be using something that looks like Gmail and it uses the Gmail backend. You are inadvertently sharing a lot of reputation, a lot of statistics with those systems. So if you are, and every sender has a mixture of those B2C and B2B addresses. So if you're not taking the right precautions across your entire database, regardless of if you're a B2B focused or B2C focused sender, you're going to encounter these issues. Of course, with B2B, there's added layers of company security and other things, but it still does not take away from the fact that underneath that sits this reputation system that is ubiquitous across senders. It is automated. You need to play by the rules to be successful.
Agreed. Okay, so the next step in the wellness plan is to know your vitals, right? So similar to how we track our workouts and our steps on our Apple Watch, I know I'm obsessed with mine, you also need to kind of track the engagement and vitals of your email database. So understanding the activity, the engagement of all of the customers within your universe. And although we're always striving for good data, of course, bad data can actually be, really important too, and provide some really important insight. So if you think about it from a lead source perspective, let's say you start to see a bunch of disposable emails coming in, and maybe you realize they're coming in from certain affiliates. That would allow you to do kind of an audit and figure out which of those channels you want to allow in and which ones you want to potentially push back on. And then also, if you start to see a high influx of undeliverable emails, maybe you're having issues right at point of sale. People are fat fingering their email, which is natural, it happens, but that's an opportunity where you could say, okay, maybe we need to add validation to the mix to make sure that we're not allowing any of that bad data in from, kind of the get-go. And then the other thing to think about is knowing the vitals of your inactive database. So even though that seems like, it's a bad thing, those individuals were active and engaged with you in the past, and that's important. So trying to win them back is imperative. And if you take that list of those inactives and you find out that they're active and opening elsewhere, let's say in the past 30, 60 days, you can actually run a re-engagement or win back campaign to try and bring them back. Because as we all know, generating new customers, new prospects is expensive, and it's difficult with a lot of the new privacy changes. So the more that you can re-engage or organically opted in list, the better off you're going to be. So there truly is a lot that you can do to turn your bad data into good data.
Absolutely. And I'm a big believer in bad data as studying your bad data, because that's like negative analytics. Where is that bad data coming from? Where is it? How is it being collected? So what is it telling you about your program to help you focus on the good data? Now, let's talk about personalization for a second. And when I say personalization, I'm not just talking about hello first name. I'm talking about the personalization of that experience of how you're communicating with individuals. This is 2024. There's an expectation kind of coming from consumers that you'll sort of be able to respond to them and what it is that they want. Understand, how are they engaging with your brand? Like, look at your program through their eyes. Are you a clothing retailer and people want to see what is the latest deals on that month or that week or however? Or are you selling cars? Again, using this analogy, and they want to see what is the latest, what car would be applicable to them because of their past shopping behavior, whatever it may be. So as much as you can personalize the experience, you really, really want to do that. Now, going beyond that, there's a lot of great tools out there that help you understand how people are engaging with your brand. Are most of your engagements coming from desktop computers, or are they coming from phones, mobile phones? If most of your engagements are coming from mobile phones, which we just see that trend going up, optimize for mobile. Send more precise, smaller messaging, so someone doesn't have to flip through an email on their phone, because the mobile user, and the studies have showcased that the mobile user is generally considered a distracted user, right? You're never just doing one thing on your phone. You're texting, you're listening to music, you're doing tons of things. Maybe you're checking email. So the more concise you can get that message to deliver, to that customer, and be aware of what it is that you expect from them and what they expect from you, you can better personalize that experience. And automation and all these tools allow us to do this at scale. So you're not sitting there and designing individual experiences. But that is what helps maintain a healthy relationship with your customers and will keep them engaged as time goes on. So really just setting up where this all is going. With the changes that are happening in the landscape and what we've seen in deliverability, auditing, reporting over the last few months, now is the time where really quality over quantity is becoming the order of the day. ISPs are expecting quality over quantity. They're expecting, smaller, more concise groups. That delivers better, that performs better, not just mathematically, but it performs better because it delivers in a more effective manner with MTAs that actually do the sending. So this is really the time when we're going to see that trend change. And Katie, what I'll add to that is we know that we have seen a lot of cases where the tracking pixels are disappearing. So we're seeing open rates becoming less of a indicator of how successful a campaign was, as different systems, phones, operating systems are blocking that pixel. So this is causing senders to have to put more onus on the click traffic or on the website visit traffic that came from the email or the purchase traffic from there. Once you start looking at those metrics to consider if a campaign was successful or not, your whole concept of how to design your campaign changes. You'll realize that more concise sending, more personalized communication is what gets those clicks, is what gets those sales. So now, as we're seeing this truly, the monumentous shift that the quality over quantity is happening, there's a lot of different ways to be looking at your metrics and making sure that those systems are connected together so you can tie some sort of customer action back to how they got there, whether it be the email or some omni-channel experience that they received.
Absolutely. Okay, so next step in our wellness plan is maintaining your health, right? And maintaining your health, it's not just a quick fix. This isn't a fad diet. You really do have to change your behavior for the long run. And so it kind of goes back to that concept of using bad data for good. So a lot of times, you've got that, like we talked about, that natural churn where emails become undeliverable for whatever reason. So you can actually use that as an opportunity to find the newest, most active deliverable email address tied to your customers from the past. And that way you can maintain communication with them and stay in touch with them in their new inbox. So I think there are a variety of ways to use that bad data, but that's another way to kind of maintain the health of your universe, is making sure that you've got the most up-to-date, point of communication with that individual. And same goes with reputation management. Right, Bob?
Yeah, absolutely. So how this plays into reputation management, this is key. So kind of, again, going back to the data that we looked at for the 1,000 deliverability audits and reports that we reviewed, reputation management should be part of your strategy. And where it begins is with your IP setup. Like, how are you sending? There are programs that would benefit from a shared IP structure. There are programs that would benefit from an individual IP structure, maybe 2 IPs, however it may be. But as you begin planning your campaign and planning your segmentation and your strategy, doing that through the lens of deliverability really helps you ensure that you're maximizing the performance of your campaign. Now, really, when you're sending a campaign, it comes down to thinking of it 2 ways. Are you proactively communicating? So you're saying, here's the new deals we have coming up. Here's what you can expect from our brand this month. Or are you reacting to something? Hey, you just bought this, or you just abandoned the shopping cart, whatever it may be. These 2 strategies kind of, well, depending on if you're proactively reaching out or reacting to something that the customer does, should help you tailor your messaging and make sure that you're sending the relevant content to the relevant audiences. This is just the most important thing when it comes to segmentation and developing that strategy. And all the ISPs state this is the best practice. So as long as you're doing that, the email program is going to do well. And then from there, it's how do you advance that? And going back to data, for example, we've talked about bad data, but what about good data and what you do with ensuring you have good data?
Absolutely.
And this is kind of, sorry, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so one of the other, great ways to kind of maintain your health is by thinking about adding new equipment, right? New technology. And I think it's on everybody's mind at the moment, but AI and machine learning are just a constant in the email marketing world. I was actually at a really great conference in December called the Email Insider Summit, and they actually spent an entire day focused on AI alone. So a ton of great brands were there, really impressive ESPs, and every ESP kind of walked through what their newest technology is, their newest AI technology, but they all had the same sentiment. And I thought it was really interesting. AI, the personalization, it's only as good as that underlying data, that good data that Bob just mentioned. And so without that data, AI can't do its magic. So you really need those additional data points. So, understanding that those emails are active and deliverable, and adding, the demographics as well. And that's going to allow the AI to send at the proper time, to send the proper message at the proper time. So it's really, I thought that was kind of an interesting overall summary that they all came back to, is that data really is king.
Yeah. And ultimately, right, what you're driving at is, what is that next best action? What is the next best action you want the consumer to make, or what is their next best action within your ecosystem? So ultimately, everything that you're sending is for that, right? What do you want them to do? And the more data you have on the customers you're sending to, the more you can help prompt what that next best action is, or ensuring that the user experience for them to take that next best action is simple, straightforward, and makes sense within the context of the communication of the brand. So again, this is where a lot of AI and ML is going, is just to help identify those things so you can make those decisions across your ecosystem. So good data.
So what are some other healthy habits? I think it's important to think about where your customers want to be communicated, what channel they want to be communicated in. So maybe if you've got a wide range of age ranges, you could think about sending SMS or considering sending a personalized postcard. I know that a lot of my clients are moving towards, doing physical mail, because our physical mailboxes aren't near as clogged up as our email inboxes are these days. But I think, if you are going to consider messaging them in other channels, the most important thing that you can do is to keep that message, consistent across all of those channels. And then also making sure that the design is consistent as well, right, Bob?
Yes. So when we say like design for these channels, again, going back to our example of like, are your users, are your customers desktop users, mobile users, whatever it may be, social users, maybe that's how they're engaging with your brand. You want to make sure that experience is very simple and optimized for that type of viewing device, for that type of viewing experience. Because getting that email on your mobile phone that's this long, I mean, it's just going to discourage the sender. Or if they can't see the CTA, it's not immediately clear what you're supposed to do when you get this communication, or what you're supposed to do when you get to the web page. You're going to lose people, right? And you have like that not even 2 seconds to kind of get those people, so their attention. So I mean, design for those different channels, optimize for those different channels. That is the most important thing for customers and what they want to see. And one thing that I'll add to that is this is the best time while you're when you're in that design mode, is to always be testing. I recommend this to absolutely every sender we work with. Every campaign you send, every segment you build, you have an opportunity to be testing something. It could be a subject line, a layout, a type of segment versus another segment. And the purpose of always be testing is to be consistently refining, right? How do you refine that segmentation process, that design, whatever it may be, so that you can arrive at what makes the most sense for your brand and where you find you get the most response from your customers. So never stop testing, right? And you're just always be growing, always be advancing what you're doing. And if you're going to put a test together, it's important to understand on the other end what that's supposed to look like. So when you go back to review that campaign or those campaigns, you know that then you tested this layout or this subject line, so you know what it is you want to get out of that test, and so that you then translate into learnings to apply to the next test. Always be testing, always be advancing and growing what you're doing.
Absolutely. So that's the quick run through of our recommended wellness plan as it relates to your email database. And these are kind of the few takeaways that we wanted to share and walk you through today. But now is a great opportunity for us to answer any of those outstanding questions that you guys submitted along the way. So April, I will let you jump in and ask us everyone's burning questions.
Yeah, thanks guys. Those were some great findings from those 1,000 audits and a great collab of Katie and Bob. And thanks so much to you both for the time and effort in putting that together to share with us. Very much appreciated. Again, if anyone has any questions, please put them in the question section. So for our first question, Katie and Bob, we have, how do you feel about double opt-in upon sign up?
Go ahead, Bob.
Katie, do you want to start?
I feel like you have strong opinions.
Okay, you cannot deny that having a double opt-in, and okay, let's qualify double opt-in, right? So you give an email address, and then we, option A, we send you an email and say click to confirm your email address, definitely double opt-in. Or maybe there's the light version of that, which is enter your email address, enter it again, and then sign it. Not true double opt-in, but starts achieving a similar result. There's no question that it is good for your program. It's good for your data, especially if you have an opt-in source that you expect your customers to use. There's no question. It's not mandatory. It is not required by law in any way. But I mean, double opt-in is something that I would recommend senders to consider if you realize you have a problem. You have those fatty finger addresses constantly coming in. Your alternative is, of course, Katie, is real-time data hygiene. That is a great way of sort of doing that, and it doesn't break the user experience, so to speak. But you can't deny that it is an effective measure. Kate, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
I agree. No, I agree with that sentiment. I think validation is an alternative method because the whole goal is to make sure that they're confirming that their email is good, right? And that could be done right at sign up. So I think there was a while where, there were some companies that were trying to be as conservative as possible, and double opt-in seemed like the best way to do that. But as it relates to canned spam, it is not required. I think anyone that wants to lean more conservative, absolutely. I agree, though, it could add some barriers to sort of your flow with the new customer. So I don't know that it's necessary, but every email marketing program has different levels of tolerance. So it's truly up to you.
Great. Thanks, guys. Next question from the group. What are preferred or recommended tools for monitoring email infrastructure health, i.e. deliverability, inbox placement, etc.?
That would be Bob's company.
I have a controversial answer. In my opinion, the best tools for monitoring inbox placement and performance is your own reporting. Do it yourself. I'm a big believer in do your own deliverability. So if you were to sort of look at your campaign reports and look at them by ISP, look at your open rates by ISP, your click rates by ISP, you'll start getting a sense of if you're experiencing an issue. It'll be very clear to you that there's ISPs that are lower than, say, your average, lower than different top performing domains. Sorry. So I strongly recommend you start there to understand how you're performing. Match your open rate with the industry standard in your industry, right? Auto, banking, whatever you do. See where you are. If you're below that, you might have a problem. That's when you might want to consider engaging a deliverability team, a deliverability analyst to help. And then alternatively, when it comes to inbox placement, generally, that's something you can always do proactively. There's a lot of great partners out there that can do an inboxing seed test for you if you wanted to see that. But for me, because the question says what is preferred, I prefer look inward before you look outward to see if you can spot where issues are. And that's where sort of the journey begins to understand, like, okay, why is this engagement rate down, or why do I have this problem? What's causing it? And this is where you start, maybe it's your opt-in, maybe it's your data management, maybe it's your authentication. All that stuff starts becoming clear when you start getting a sense of what is it that you're seeing. And maybe to start, get help from your ESP, get help from your deliverability, a deliverability representative who would be able to look at it that way. But that's typically where I would begin.
Awesome, thank you. Next question. I know we get this a lot at Data. What is your opinion on open rates as a metric?
I mean, I think open rates are still important. I know that people feel with some of the changes coming, or that have happened with Apple, that they're sort of inflated a bit. But I still think it gives you a good enough understanding for the success of an email send. I don't think it's the end all be all. I know Bob mentioned prior, focusing more on clicks in the future, but I do still think it's a strong statistic and something that you should focus on, but it can't be sort of your only metric that you're tracking.
And I completely agree. I did make that comment and I stand by it, but I do agree. For me, I would still, what are the open rates? I'll always start there because that's your first indicator of how things are doing. Once you look down the line, again, you start getting different perceptions of how the program is doing, but open rate's still very viable. Don't see that changing in the near future. So always start there.
Great. How can we sign up for our own deliverability audit?
Well, my email's down there.
Yeah.
Reach out to Katie.
That's an easy one.
Yeah. Happy to help. The same thing whenever, like I stated off the top, is when we do encounter data as being the problem, which it seems to be in a very high percentage of the times, I call Katie, right? Because her background in and what data does is really, does accomplish what, the situation often needs. But the tools that really do get me excited beyond hygiene is the scoring and the different engagement things that you guys do there, which I think is phenomenal, because ultimately bad data is one thing, but we need to focus on engagement. So I don't know if you want to add something to that.
Yeah, that's a good point. So we've recently added an engagement score along with our safe to send validation. So we kind of decided that, there's so much value in cleaning your emails and understanding which are bad, but there's also a lot of value in understanding which of those emails are good, right? So within the exact same, whether it's through the API or in batch run, you can actually identify which of the emails need to be added to your suppression list and which ones are the most active and engaged and therefore have the potential to be, your best customers. So I do think it's a really great add-on. Validation is necessary for any company of any size in any vertical, truly, but adding this on, I think is really a great tool so that you can understand, like we talked about, both the good data and the bad.
Yep, great, thanks guys. So next question, how often should suppression lists and such be updated to maintain high email deliverability?
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day. Right?
In real time.
Yeah, in real time, all the time, right? Get them out as soon as
Yeah.
it's not looking good. Get it out and focus on the good.
Yep.
I mean, from personal experience, I have opted out of things and they've continued to email me way after the 10 days. And it ticks me off as an email marketer. So I do think that the quicker that you can add them to your suppression file, the better, but also, you know, hopefully you can change your marketing strategy around to win them, but there's only so much you can do. And I think staying on top of it and having it be as real time as possible is probably your best bet.
And the only thing I'll add to that is, you know, again, if you do employ a multi-channel strategy, you know, focus on those other channels, right? And if you do have someone that you communicate through SMS or push or anything like that simultaneously, you know, at some point it's worthwhile asking, hey, the email address we have for you on file is no good. Can you update this and maybe get something?
Yep, great. Next
question.
one, we aren't utilizing in-depth personalization in marketing at the moment. What's a good way to get started?
Yeah, so I get this question a lot. I think sometimes it feels like a really big lift to get started on personalization, and it really doesn't have to be complicated. You can, you know, first start off with a couple different fields that are relative to, you know, whatever it is that you're selling or marketing, and that can have a huge impact on your success and your conversions. So you know, you don't need to add 15 different demographic fields or 100 different, you know, fields that you're going to get overwhelmed. Start small, you know, maybe you just start with age range and change the images based off of the age range, you know, that you're marketing to. If you think about an insurance company, you know, there's a very different image on that email in that direct mail piece for somebody that's, you know, a young family, a young couple versus an older retired couple. I think you can change that image around, start small, and then understanding things like household income. Are they married? Do they have kids? And then you can continue to tailor and tweak from there. But I would say start slow and then add on to sort of your personalization plan.
And if I could add just one thing, you know, every data point you can collect on a customer, be it at initial opt-in or over time, is something that tells you something about them, helps you build a segment, helps you know how to respond to them. So, you know, there's nothing wrong with saying, you know, opt in our email program, give me your first name, give me your email address, and then, you know, choose from a drop down of why are you interested or what are you looking for? Anything like that begins that personalization process. And I'm a big believer in using drop downs and all this stuff because you standardize the data. You're not getting any sort of free form text, people writing things in. You can't do much with that. But every opportunity you have to kind of get any nugget of information on customers will help you personalize and will help you sort of understand your database so you know how to respond to it.
Well, and I mean, not to play devil's advocate here, but a lot of companies don't want to add too much during the, you know, email collection process. And so if you're one of those that's hesitant to add additional questions and drop downs, the alternative is using the behavioral data, right? The click data, the browsing behavior. What are they looking at on your website? What emails, you know, specifically what products did you put in front of them that they were interested in? There are ways around, you know, asking some of those additional questions if you're hesitant to do so, and that will help with personalization as well. And again, that's where the AI technology I think is incredibly impressive because it will automatically pull in some of those engagement, you know, metrics and information so that it can tailor the next message that's pushed out.
Great. Yep. Last question, guys. How will privacy, this is kind of broad, how will privacy changes impact email marketing?
Yeah, I mean, so we talked about this a little bit, but you know, I think the biggest impact that it has is it puts a much larger onus on keeping your first party data as clean and enhanced as possible because going out and generating, you know, new customers is going to become even more difficult. And so I think the more that you can be proactive, maintain your organically opted in database, the better off you're going to be. That is the best asset you have, your first party data. And I think it's just going to get only more difficult to add to it. So that's kind of my thought, Bob.
Yeah.
I don't have anything to add to that. I mean, just the signs of the changes we're seeing with Gmail, with Yahoo, I mean, that's just going to become standard, right? And who's to say within a year, 2 years, that that'll be just par for the course across the board. So, I mean, as you consider privacy, as you consider your data and all that, you know, this is just a sign of things to come. So it's all those things that are required to keep a list healthy, and, you know, it will pay itself in dividends, because like I said, you will see better performance, you'll see better engagement, you'll see better click-throughs, purchases, whatever the purpose of your email program is.
And you know,
Awesome.
there's been changes throughout the industry for as long as we've been in it, right? They added canned spam. They, you know, GDPR came into the mix, and I think CCPA, and I think a lot of people get nervous. The Apple changes, right? Like, what is the impact going to be on email marketing? And I think we're resilient in email marketing. There's always a way around it. So, you know, I think do your research, make sure you understand the changes that are coming, but I don't think it's a barrier per se. It just means you kind of have to pivot and take another path.
Yeah, great, thanks guys. So that's the end of our session today, everyone. Thanks again for joining us. If you'd like to contact Katie or Bob, their email is down below. Again, we'll be sending the replay with their information via email to whoever's registered or attended. And thanks, Katie and Bob, again, for putting all these tips together for us and findings. Much appreciated. And I hope everyone has a terrific day. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks,
Have a
Bob.
good day. Thanks, Katie. Bye.